So Andy asked me to do this, and coincidentally enough, I just started doing the coaching development thing the last couple of years, and we'll kind of go over some things in a timeline. Not because I'm interested in selling anything or hey, this is what I do. It'll come together on kind of why we do Elite the way we do, and some of the just the genesis of how it worked out and everything. And I'll make a long convoluted story into about 5 or 10 minutes here. So, intro and background. My name's Sean Centeno. Born in San Diego, raised in Wyoming. Played baseball in Arizona for a couple of years in JUCO. I was drafted by the Cardinals out of high school. Didn't sign. It was a draft and follow, a low draft pick. Didn't sign. Ended up getting converted into a catcher in Arizona. Basically, they thought, hey man, you're not fast enough to be third or short, so or shortstop, so you better catch. And I threw like this. So it was a pretty easy decision developmentally wise for me. So then I played 3 years at University of Arkansas Little Rock in the Sun Belt Conference. Played a year of independent professional ball in West Virginia, and then my arm just kind of gave out. So that was my career. Came back to Omaha. My brother played at Bellevue University here. And I knew right away Omaha, Nebraska was where I wanted to start my family after playing all over the place and doing my thing. Nebraska is where it's at. And my wife always says, "Are you serious? Really? Why'd you come here?" And I told her, "Well, you've never been some of the places, so you guys, we really don't know how lucky we have. Some of us that haven't left the state." But married my wife. She had a kid, 5-year-old. Obviously, get him in baseball right away, right? So I ended up being a volunteer coach for Millard United. At the time, it was Millard Athletic Association. Millard United was at Kingswood and Millard Athletic Association. They combined years ago. At the time, it was just Millard Athletic Association, no Kingswood. Coached rec for 4 years, or I'm sorry, for a year. Didn't want to coach. I was kind of done with baseball. Didn't want to coach. Didn't want to do any of it. And my wife convinced me, hey, we need you. You got to coach. You know baseball. And after a couple practices and after a couple of games, I thought, man, I got to get in here. This hurts. So just basic rec baseball. When we started, he started at 11 years old, and the kid showed some promise. And at the time, which was ended up being a really really important step. And you guys may talk to this a little bit, but Millard started a power program, and this was 2000, I want to say 9 or 10. And what basically that is the space between rec ball and majors ball, which is, as you guys know, is the absolute majority of the kids, right? So it was single A, double A, triple A baseball. And they said, hey, we need something in between there to kind of get started and more teams. Now, some people might say that was not necessarily a great thing because of how kind of watered down a lot of the baseball teams have become. Good and bad, right? Plenty more kids get to play more competitive baseball. But as we know, there's a lot of teams out there that are double A, triple A that are just kind of like, I don't even know if they should be out there. And then this dad says, hey, I want to take half this team and I want to go create another team. And then it gets watered down more and more. So that's kind of the bad part about it. The good part about it is more kids are playing baseball. So we went from 11-year-old out of rec at 10. At 11 years old, we went from single A. We started from the ground up. And then by the time we were 14, we made it to triple A with the same kids. So I was like, hey, man, maybe coaching kind of me, my guys, my assistants, or maybe this is kind of the thing for us. Maybe we should coach a little bit and do this thing. And my kid aged out, went to high school, didn't play, was never really that good in baseball. He's more of a football track kid. So I was like, okay, I'm done. 4 years, I've kind of had it. I want to rest a little bit. And then I get a phone call from the Gladiators, which was pre-UBA. It was just Gladiators when they were the old baby blue and red. My buddy ran it on the fire department, and I had no idea that he did. And he said, "You want to be a paid coach?" And I thought, wow, paid coach, what is that like? Instead of spending 2, 3 grand a year out of my own pocket, I'm gonna actually get paid for this stuff. Okay, let's do that. It'll be fun. I coached 9 and 10s with Gladiators. And then what happened was UBA came about. They wanted to combine Gladiators back in the day, 2000, I want to say 11, 12, somewhere in there. We had a meeting. The meeting was, a lot of the meeting was about money. And that completely kind of turned me off. So I was like, I'm out. I don't want to kind of deal with the money part and all this stuff. I wanted to hear more development, the kids and all that type of stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm good. 2 years was good enough for me. Next day I get called by Millard. Hey, we started an elite program. And this was 2000. They started in 2012 and it's doing pretty well. In the old school days, for some of you young guys, it used to be Millard Red and Blue. It was Gladiators in Omaha. It was Pace Setters. And then Tigers came along in the early 2000s. For here, I don't know Lincoln baseball quite as much, but it was still the Sox, the Rebels, correct? And were the Cyclones around at that time? Maybe 2000. Okay. So did you say Gladiators? Yeah. Yeah. Yep. In Omaha. So they had combined and they said we were just kind of stagnating a little bit with the elite program. We need somebody to kind of come in and just kind of push because we kind of know what it can be and we're not quite there yet. So I decided, hey, okay, if I do this, here's what I'm going to need. Boom, boom, boom. And they gave me everything I need. So in 2013, 14, I decided to do this and not completely smart on my end, didn't completely think it through, even though it worked out. I said, I want to coach the eights every year and then send them up and then come back, coach eights again, send them up with my assistant coaches, whether it be a parent that has baseball experience or a paid coach, maybe a kid out of college or whatever it may be. But I feel that way I think that this will work. This will take off. And not very many guys want to do that. I'm not going to be honest with you. So we ended up doing that. And long story short, it just kind of it blew up. We ended up doing really well in those 2014 to 18 years. We just had a ton of state championships. And some of this stuff right here is part of the reason why we did really well. We get a lot of kids, obviously, but the development, Millard always had a lot of kids, but the development piece and kind of what we'll go over is what I feel why we blew up. So my role at MUS, like I said, ran elite program and coached eights. And running elite programs, what that entailed is the elite school that you see here. It starts in early January and it goes for 12 weeks. And we do Saturday mornings. We start at 7 a.m. and it goes to 11. And so I had to juggle anywhere from 10 to 14 teams in that span. And how did we do that? So you need good coaches and instructors. So we wanted instructors that weren't necessarily elite coaches or coaches, just guys that came in that didn't have a vested interest in the teams. And we did that and it worked out pretty well. But as you guys know, it's hard to find good instructors. So I had to start hiring coaches that also could do the instruction, which ended up being a really good deal because our coaches say, I hired a guy that coaches our 10 elite and I wanted him to instruct Saturday mornings. He ended up understanding swings of the 8-year-olds, the 9-year-olds we had, the 14s, the 13s. He understood all their swings. He knew what to do. He knew how to develop them. And so just kind of organically, it kind of happened that way where, man, we know all these kids and what we need to do development-wise, 5 or 6 of us. So let's get after it. So it ended up being a really good thing, bringing in the coaches. And they couldn't work with their team on Saturday mornings. They had to work with the other team. So their team was kind of on their own. And as you can see how we broke it up. And part of it, guys, is Brian Feakin, who played at Louisville, was a Papillion guy. And Jeff Lisey, I think everybody knows Jeff Lisey with the Huskers. And he coached for me for a few years before he started the prospects, the young prospects teams. But you have to have good guys. And those are good guys. Those are guys that understand baseball, but more importantly, they understood the kid part of it. Incredible with kids. Absolutely incredible. They understood the fun part, having fun and doing their thing, but they also were hard on the kids, right? But they knew how to love them up too. So there's a fine line there. We hear that a lot, and I kind of cringe, hey, we have to have fun. And then I see a practice, and basically it's an hour and a half of games and having fun and tag stuff. And I'm like, okay, there's kind of a limit to having the fun. So we have to, and what I do now is I actually observe practices also we have 55 select baseball teams and 60 select softball teams with Nebraska Gold. So that's a lot of teams. So I wanted to watch each practice. I give my 2 cents on the practice, help the coaches out, not a critique at all. That's also part of what I do currently. But the ideas behind it is the coaches, you have to have the same value system. Okay. Now here's the thing. I kind of liken it to, I'm kind of a catching instructor. I kind of do it all, but catching's kind of where it's at for me. I always tell guys, if you go to a catching instructor, 90% of what we teach is going to be the same thing. It's catching. Okay. There's some new trends and different things, but that 10% is the instructor's personalities. It's maybe he don't agree with maybe kind of getting underneath the ball. They're more old school framer, that type of stuff. But 90% of it is the same. So when I say value system, we all kind of value, hopefully, the same thing, guys. Our goal is to get them to high school and they're competent and they understand how to play competitive baseball and they understand that it's not going to be given to them, type of deal. So the coaches have to have the same value system. They have to obviously be knowledgeable about baseball. Do you have to be a baseball guy? Do you have to play college ball, pro ball, get drafted? Absolutely not. Some of our best coaches were guys that played high school baseball, didn't play college, didn't play pro. So that's if we just waited for that, first of all, there wouldn't be as many coaches, and you couldn't really get it done. But that's kind of where I came in with Millard is I've got to coach the coach, and having 800 select kids, I can't reach every kid. So we decided just to hammer away at coaching the coach, and that was part of the elite school stuff. Now, how do you take a program like the Elite 8 to 14? At the time, it was 8 to 14, and then the 7 start popping up, which I said I would never, absolutely never bring into the program. But then you get a guy like Jeff Lisey that wants to coach 7s, and you're like, okay, I kind of have to appease Jeff a little bit. So, how do you start it? Okay, culture. We hear that word a ton, right? What is it? We hear it, and if we went down the line, we'd all probably have about a 90% same definition, but there's that little 10% that we'd probably change up a little bit, which is completely a good thing. Personalize it. The culture is just share attitude, values, goals of an organization. That's about as easy. There's about 8 definitions of culture, but that's basically what it is how the values of the organization, how you're going to kind of mesh those things. Incredibly important, obviously, and it's the old algorithm. There's a culture, and everything falls underneath there. Okay, and the good thing about our coaches in the elite program were we all were riding on the same train, and it doesn't happen a ton because we can be competitive dudes, right? And we may not agree with certain things, but and that's okay. But we were able to talk it out. One of the things that I did with our coaches is I forced them to be on a text thread with me, where we shared ideas daily, on season, off season, it didn't matter. Daily, we shared ideas. We would build like friendships, as in, hey, I'm not using my baseball field, this field, my practice lot on Thursday. Anybody need it? Oh yeah, man, I need that. That'd be great. Thank you. And it was just back and forth. So it created a kind of a camaraderie, and which is what I wanted within all the coaches. We were helping each other out a lot. What does that do? Builds camaraderie, but also you're not going to get a coach that bitches a little bit about, hey, we don't have enough fields, our fields are terrible, this and that. It kind of puts a boot on that a little bit too, which is kind of was my goal to, hey, coaches complain, coaches want stuff for their team. I totally get it. I was the same way. So it just gave us another avenue. And with Millard, we're so big and we use city fields. We have a lot of fields, but we have a lot of teams, and it's hard to kind of put every team, and nobody's going to get everything they want. It's just not possible, right? So we started that thread, and that kind of changed a ton of stuff. We became really good friends, and at that point, the culture was kind of set with the coaching staff, which is what I wanted. And then at that point, it all kind of rained down onto the kids. After the culture, we have these pillars that I wrote, and it's culture, consistency, confidence, and competition. That was the culture I wanted to build, right? The consistency is we do not want to reinvent baseball for these little guys. I am not a huge drill guy at all. There's coaches that are drill guys. There's coaches that aren't. For youth baseball, I think The easier you make it for these little ones, the better. And we'll get into our what I call our ethos, the Millard Elite ethos, in a second. We'll kind of explain a little bit more about the drill stuff. Um, we remain steadfast. We get these kids for about 2 to 4 hours a week. So if you're trying to get 20 drills going with these kids that are 8, 9, 10 years old, they're not going to have it. It's just they don't move that way. They don't understand. Kids start to reason about 7, 8 years old. They start to kind of understand and reason stuff. You're trying to tell a kid that's 8, 9 years old, hey, put your foot here. Uh, swing your hips here. I want you to put your elbow. Not happening, guys. It's not happening. Believe me, I tried it through trial and error. I was that guy, drill, robot, teaching robots. I was even kind of what I was taught, cloning hitters type of stuff. And I threw that out about year 3. Just was not working as well as I wanted it to work. So um, they just can't. I'm more of the Bruce Lee guy where he says, I would rather practice one kick 10,000 times than 10,000 kicks one time. So that's the kind of coach I am. With my current team now, we probably do at 13U, as Andy knows, we probably do 2 or 3 hitting drills, and that's usually just to get us warmed up. And then after that, we don't do drills at all. We just don't. But that's my philosophy, and that's kind of my approach. And we'll kind of get into how we train and different things in a second. The confidence part, I think we all know that. If you go into something with confidence, then you're prepared and you feel like you're going to win. Not always going to happen. As Coach Andy showed me, we were pretty confident. Even though his team has handled our team better than any team in the region, they're just super competitive against us. He gets them to just get after it, and I really respect that part of it. And so they have that confidence, and it's going to do nothing but build after they beat us in the state championship. It's going to go. So we're going to have some battles here for the next couple of years, which is absolutely awesome. Expect to play well and believe in your abilities. That's kind of a natural. That's what we want to teach kids. Baseball's tough, right? The body language thing is tough. I just dealt with a kid. I have a big kid who was just throwing. We were starting throwing live to hitters, and the kid throws 2 balls in a row, and I thought his dog died. I've had this kid for 5 years, and we've just repeatedly having to push this kid. And he's super talented, but I'm at the point where at what point, what do we do? What do we do now with this kid? So it's just a confidence thing. He doesn't have confidence, but he's a really good baseball player. That's a tough one. That's a really tough one. Compete with ourselves and our rivals. Again, we'll get into that a little bit more, but everything we do, whether it's hitting, whether it's our turf practices, we compete. Whether it's a drill, whether it's at the end, whatever it is, breaking kids up in half, we compete. It doesn't matter what it is. And what that's done. Yeah. Yeah. So initially when he was 8, it was pat him on the back type stuff, because again, they're 8, they're starting to reason. We want them to continue to want to play baseball. If we absolutely get after them at that age, the majority of kids probably aren't going to respond to that really well. Some will, some will. That's just kind of a nature versus nurture thing. But he was not one that was going to handle that very well. So it was more of a pat on the back. It's going to be okay. We wrote some things in his hat. Literally, it's going to be okay. It's not a big deal. And he would take his hat off and look at that thing, and everything would be a lot better. Now, I get after him a little bit more. There's still some pat on the back, but I absolutely get after him now. Okay. You look like you're 30 years old. Okay. But you act like you're 9. So we've got to go. And his dad and the parent part of it, his parents have been awesome about it. They understand the situation. They don't blame anybody else. They're assisting with this kid with outside organizations, trying to help him, and he'll get there. He's gotten better, but it's just such a slow crawl. So essentially, I don't curse them out by any means, but essentially it's just, hey, that's 2 balls. This is a simulated game. Relax. That's ridiculous what you're doing. Something like that. You know, absolutely won't curse at him or anything like that. But again, he usually reacts to that pretty well. So Anyway, the compete part is incredibly important, man. What I found was kids after practice, before practice, they're competing at home. They're talking to each other. They're playing games, whether it's rock, paper, scissors. They're competing constantly. They kind of just, it's ingrained. And, there's some kids that are naturally competitive. It's like I said before, it's a nature versus nurture thing. You're either born with it or without it. And then there's some kids you can actually nurture that into them a little bit. And some of our kids, that's kind of what we've done, is just kind of nurture it into them, because some guys just don't like to compete, man. That's the way it is. And when the crap hits the fan, they kind of tend to cower a little bit. And you want to kind of tell them that it's a privilege. Pressure is a privilege. And the majority of the time, you're not going to do well. Not in this sport. It's just the way it goes. So yeah, it's the competition thing is an absolute must. The most important thing that I feel that I implemented, and again, I've struck out a lot on this stuff. A lot of this stuff, it mirrors basically being a baseball player. You try, you mess up, you kind of do it over, you work on it, you do it over, you work on it, you fail, you work on it. But the one thing that I'm probably most proud of, in my opinion, is our ethos, which is basically guiding principles of whatever your organization. It could be your family, it could be anything, right? Number one with our ethos is be an athlete, not a robot. Okay, that came from trying to clone hitters, right? These kids were up there. Okay, my hands have to be here. My leg has to be here. Coach said, don't do an open stance. So I have to do, just too much thinking. It's over. How are they going to be in the box and deal with that after thinking all this stuff? It's too hard. We've got to get those thoughts out, and they just got to play, right? So that's number one, be an athlete, not a robot. The one most important thing out of these ethos is see game-like speeds and velocities daily in practice. Okay. It's the one thing that coaches, and I don't get after our coaches because sometimes we don't know what we don't know. We're doing well. We want to help the kids, but we just don't understand how to do it. So, and you'll know that when you see a team practice and coaches mean well and they're good guys, but guess what? Half the practice is they're running bases, they're conditioning, they get the ladders out and the kids are doing ladders, and about 20 minutes is actual baseball. Okay, in my opinion, those are typically coaches, unless you have a ton of time on your hands, which we don't. 2 to 4 hours. I don't know how much you have with your team now, Andy. How many hours do you have with your team a week? Okay, yep. Standard 2 to 4. We have 2 practices and then a hitting practice once a week. And so they have to see game-like speeds in practice. They can't take 30-mile-an-hour fastballs in the cage from 40 feet, 35 feet, and just hit absolute piss missiles all over the cage, come out feeling absolutely awesome, and then go into the game facing 75 miles an hour, and the ball's going this way, this way, this way. It doesn't work that way. So the biggest change, yeah.
How long, you said a game like Cena simulate for them? How long or how much would you really overdo it? Up in the velo, get in, not really.
That's a really, really good question. And that's one that we've kind of went back and forth on. And you'll get guys, and some of you guys will probably disagree, and that's completely fine. So I'm going to tell you what we do with my team now. Now, I coached 8s and sent them up for 7 years. And then I had this team at 8. And then I said, you know what? It's a good group of parents. I think it's time for me to take a team up. And you notice I didn't say kids. I said parents. It's a good group of parents. So I thought, this is pretty, as of right now, this is pretty low maintenance. And I haven't had one issue with a parent in 5 years, which is totally weird. It's kind of freaking me out, actually. So, but it's a good thing. But very good question. So with my guys, here's an example. I was going to get into later, but since you brought this up, here's an example of a team hitting what we do. We get in there with the tee, which I don't necessarily like. For warm-up, tees are great. No issues. Some specific drills, if a kid is really struggling with something or has an issue, let's do a tee. Let's kind of get some things hammered out. But We'll go after we warm up, we'll go 2 cages. We have basically 45 minutes. I have 2 coaches throwing, and I'm blessed with my arm's decent. I've got 2 coaches that have really good arms, a little younger, and they throw really well and they throw strikes. So we'll start off with just basic 40-mile-an-hour fastballs down the middle, get them to see it, get their timing down a little bit. And then we go soft, then we go velo cage. And velo, 35 feet, probably 65 miles an hour. The soft is really like this. They have to go from cage to cage, back and forth. 5 swings, 5 swings, 5 swings. And they have to make the adjustment immediately on the fly, right? We do that for about 10 minutes. The next thing is we'll see spin in one cage, straight in the other, and they have to go back and forth. Same thing. Then the next one is we'll go velocity, soft, same thing over here. And then we'll go spin, velocity, but you're laying off spin. 100%, you're not swinging. So basically like a 2-0, 3-1 count. So you're laying off. I want them to fail. I want them leaving that cage thinking, holy crap, man, I hit 2-3 balls hard out of 20, 30 swings. Okay, which potentially you want it to be a little better. It's kind of like a game, right? Kind of like a game. So I don't want them coming out of the cages feeling really, really good about themselves hitting 30-mile fastballs. So our hitting is just an absolute bloodbath when we go in there. And they get upset, they get ticked off, but hopefully they will be ready in the end. And our approach is a pretty good one. We stay middle of the field. That's kind of the whole what's behind my approach, and my whole hitting philosophy is middle of the field, opposite. Kid struggles with this. Kid's pulling off. Hit it in the right center field gap, right-handed hitter. Okay. He's just not seeing the ball very well. He's getting jammed. Go opposite field. That's pretty much the answer to 99% of hitting problems. If you can just get kids to stay back a little bit longer and go that way. Because what do they want to do? They want to jump at the ball. So we challenge the heck at them. We do something called hyper velo, where we go about 30 feet. We throw about 70 miles an hour from 30 feet. So about from here, about right there, and we're bringing it. We're bringing it hard. It equals, I don't know, 90, 95-ish, somewhere in there. And are they successful? No. But guess what? They have to adapt the timing of it pretty quickly. Otherwise, they're going to look foolish. So they start earlier. They start here instead of here. So we do a 1, 2, 3. We see pitchers. Hey, he's a 1. He's a 2. He's a 3. Okay. 1's fast. 2's medium. 3 is we don't start our load until after the ball's out of our hands. So hopefully I answered your question. There's times where I feel that they probably should, maybe we're too hard on them right here. Let's get them to hit a little bit more. So we'll ease up a little bit and they'll do some things, but it's ever changing in 2 cages. It's forcing aggressiveness and adjustments in both cages simultaneously. So that's kind of our trick. I just told you our trick of the trade there, man. Andy's over there taking notes feverishly over here. That's just what we do. And I've been doing that with them since they were 8 years old. Not as fast, obviously. We've kind of climbed the hill a little bit, but been doing the same thing where at 8, we would do front toss, just standard. They hit pretty good. Then we'd sit on a bucket, throw them behind the L screen pretty hard. And they'd have to go back and forth and make the adjustment. And we would just tell them when to load and when not to load. So hopefully I answered your question, a little convoluted. Yeah, kid hits soft here, then he gets in line in the velo cage. And they're just it's a constant. Yeah, they just keep going round and round. A little, yeah, a little in the spin part of it. I mean, if you're double A and you're 12, you're probably not going to be throwing spin at them a ton. But the soft and the hard stuff, absolutely throw that at them, 100%. And the timing stuff, we do a lot of 2-plate, 3-plate timing stuff, which is pretty standard. Just have them go to this plate, then jump to 3, then go to 1, then come to 2, and you're throwing the same velocity, but they're just changing their timing. But yes, 100% you do. But my philosophy has always been don't teach, don't coach to the lowest common denominator. Okay, which not not totally PC to say, but which is saying you're maybe your number 11, 12 kid, you want to coach to your 1, 2, and then those kids have to adjust, obviously, right? So, but yeah, I was incredibly hard on when I was coaching single A, double A, triple A, those kids. And it was kind of like, man, we got to get good and we got to get good fast. Otherwise, we're not going to be in this power program very long. And fortunately, we did. We climbed pretty well. So that's the second part of the ethos. And not only in the hitting portion of it, but when we have turf practices, our ground balls are game-like. The speed of it is game-like. Everything is like a game. None of it is like a practice. It just feels game-like. And the drills we do, the speed of the drills, all that stuff. It's just, you have to go game-like or faster speed for these guys. So, and then you'll see the development really, really uptick, and it slows the game down for all of them really quickly. So, compete at everything. We talked about that. Schedule hard. That's been something that I've done since they were 8 years old. At 8, we played 9s. At 9s, we played 10s, 10s, 11s, 11s, 12s. Our 11s, I'm most proud of our 11s to 12s. We played a 75% 12-year-old schedule, and we did in major, and then we did really, really well. And it really helped those kids slow the game down for them. This year, 13, I don't know if you guys are doing it, but we're doing it one tournament, a 14, 60, 90. I just don't think now at this age, I'd like to hear your guys' opinion. At 13 to 60, 90, guys like to compete and get them ready for high school. Let's play 60, 90 at 13. You know what? I think that might be a little bit of an issue. You could kind of dip your toe in it a little bit, in my opinion. Does anybody coach 13s here? Okay.
Well, we played at a 60, 90, and we were majors, but played in an up and a double A, and just the
Size is the puberty thing, right?
Yeah.
So even major playing double A?
Yeah.
Crap, man, you're scaring the heck out of me now. I'm playing a major tournament. There is. And just in seeing our kids, we just had Elite School Saturday, just seeing our 14s, 2 teams, and it's just like, holy crap, this kid was this big last year. He's right here now. And we have some big kids, but those teams are, you're right. No, totally. Yeah. So in your opinion, maybe try it, but don't make maybe 75% of your games probably shouldn't be.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, we competed with a lot of it down in Kansas City in that we were there.
Yeah.
It was fun, but there were kids that were head and shoulders thin.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And our kids are just used to it by now. They've played up every year pretty much. So they got used to it pretty quickly. But we were actually 11s 2 years ago, and we played a 13s team because one of our kids' older brothers plays in UTAN for the Wahoo Craws. I don't know if you guys ever played them, but they were a 13. His twin brothers were on that team, and so we ended up playing them, and it was like, whoa. And country boys are even bigger. So our guys are here and they're here, and we beat them once, and they beat us the second game, but it was an eye opener definitely, and they enjoyed it, they liked it, but yeah, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that part of it. But the schedule hard stuff, there's a limit, and everybody has a different kind of level team, so you have to be smart about it. You're not going to just have your kids' brains getting beat in every week because you're trying to make them competitive and want them to play against bigger kids. There's kind of a fine line too, right? You want them to have some success. So, but don't shy away. If you're AAA, don't shy away from the major stuff. AA, play the AAA. Do that. Play it half of the year. Do that. And then get some wins under your belt and do your thing, because we can't lose sight of the ultimate goal, which is get them to high school developed so that they don't look out of place when they walk into high school around here, so that's kind of the goal. And what better way to do that than playing against bigger kids and get a comfort level going on a little bit. So it's kind of like what college is seeing now. When you walk in as a freshman in high school, you're looking at 18-year-olds and you're going, okay, here we go. Some kids are developed and are pretty good, can do it, but college now with all this stuff that's kind of fallen under the COVID stuff is, you got 18-year-olds trying to go play Division I baseball against 24-year-old dudes. It's a disaster, right now. Absolute disaster. You're better off going playing JUCO, and you know the top level guys can walk in and obviously play, but the majority of kids aren't top level. They're good. They come in. They're still need some development. Those kids are going by the wayside. They're going to JUCO or smaller Division II, Division III, which is great, which is a good thing. But it's I kind of feel bad for kids now, as Division I is just not as accessible to them as it used to be. So, but we got to prepare them either way. And the last thing is part of it, just kind of having fun and my philosophy as a coach is hit. Hits more and keep hitting. So it's I always tell the kids, if you hit, you eat, right? So we have a kid that played in our program, Cam Kojal. He's another South kid. He went to Vanderbilt, transferred to Arkansas this year, and Cam's a hitter. He was born to hit. Right? Doesn't really have a position. So they don't like DHs in Division I, especially SEC. So he was hitting so well, they had to get him on the field. They already had another DH. So he actually played first base for him. And Cam's like this tall. That play? Did you see that play? Yeah, he got hammered. But he made a good play, but that's Cam. He's one of the best kids I've ever met. Just good kid. But he hits and he's playing even with Arkansas, a top 5 program in the country, and they have been forever with Van Horn. So so if you hit, you eat, man. 70% of what we do is hitting, guys. Now, do we want to develop other parts of the games? Absolutely, 100%. But again, looking ahead, well, it's our job. Make them comfortable in high school, make their team in high school look beyond, and if they can hit, they're going to get their opportunities. So, those are that's our ethos, the 5 steps, and a couple of them have changed here and there, but I think I'm pretty comfortable in keeping that. Elite school handout, the kind of the template that we use. If you guys look over that, we did that's a template that we used, and of course the instructors changed and kind of the rotations changed, but that is what we did while I was running Elite for 8 years in a row. That is it. And it didn't change a whole lot, the template, and that was by design. Baseball is a game of repetition. It's a game of consistency, being comfortable in what you're doing. And like I said before, throwing 8,000 things and drills at these guys is not going to work. So we would get there 7:40 in the morning, right? Depending, now it's a little different with more teams and a couple of facilities, but we'd get there, everybody would gather around, we'd have a quad talk for 5 minutes. Okay, and every week it was a different topic. One week it was expectations. Like right away, first session, it would be expectations. Then we talk about confidence. And then we talk about failure for 5 minutes. Okay. And we'd have 14s here and we'd have the little 8s here. They're all listening to the same stuff, right? And those 8s are worshiping those 14s, 100%. So we would talk about that for 5 minutes, and then we'd break into our groups and our quads. We have one facility, I don't know if you guys have been in the championship center, that has 4 quads, about 70 by 70, 4 70 by 70 quads that are built. The nets can come back. And then we have one facility where you can go out to 120 by 120, and then you can, there's nets all over the place. And then we have like 21 cages as well. So they're different, but they kind of serve the same purpose. We'd break in and we would do leads and breaks. This is the part where, not a huge base running guy where we spent a ton of time on it. So in school, we did that for the coaches. We started with our leads and breaks, working one way with lefty pitchers, which just isn't done anymore for some reason. Kids, this is first base. You get a lefty pitcher, the kids get so nervous that they're going to get picked, that this is their leads, and they don't understand that you want to get out here. You want a bigger lead. You want him to pick and see if he has a snap throw, just to see. They don't understand getting bigger with the lefty, and coaches just don't teach that, and it kind of drives me nuts, honestly. But then after the leads and breaks were over, we worked on every type of scenario you could possibly work on with leads and breaks, whether it's teaching them how to turn on a fly ball, they're how to shuffle, which most kids don't know how to do. They're hopping in the air as opposed to just gaining ground with one foot always on the ground. That kind of stuff. So just teaching it from the beginning, and there's kids in our program from 8 to 14. They did this every Saturday at Elite school, and by the time they were 14, they were pretty darn good at those little detail stuff, right? And we break into groups. Okay, this is where access to instructors is obviously super important. We'd have Coach Lizzie in one, teaching outfield ops, in one. I'd be in the cages. Coach Feakin would be in the back working with our pitchers. We're working on run game control, picks, spin moves, daylight moves, inside moves, good moves, best moves, all that stuff with our kids. And one thing with what Elite School did for us, especially at the 8 to 9, where the run game, it becomes really important, is we got really, really good. So at 9s, we were just heads and shoulders above everybody at the run game control stuff. Because it's hard. 9-year-olds, it's tough, man. Teach kids how to pick and holding runners and doing all this stuff. It was really difficult, but we got really good at it. And it wasn't something that we were saying, hey, run game control, let's get really good at that at 9. It just kind of happened organically because we worked on it in Elite School. And then the coaches would kind of do their turf practice and do the same thing. So it worked out really well. At 9s, we were in a lot more control, right? And then I do hitting half the time. I'd go over to the catching. I'd get the 8 to 10s catch and just hammer away on them with catching. 8 to 10, we'd work on receiving. 90% of it was just receiving the baseball, right? 11 to 14s, we'd kind of break it up more into the throwing, blocking and recovering, that type of thing, and kind of doing it all. So catching was incredibly important to me because I was a catcher, but I wanted to push it on everybody else. Who's a catching instructor or caught? Can you hear anybody? 1, 2. So that's about right. In a room like this with these guys, it's usually 1 or 2 guys, and that's not very many. So I hold it dear to my heart that guys work on catching every practice. Work on it. If you don't know, look on YouTube. Do whatever you have to do to work on catching. I mean, there can't be a more important position on the field other than pitcher, right? So you have to work on that stuff, and it always drives me nuts. Okay. Before games, pitcher goes down to the bullpen, catcher will go catch him or whatever. Some guys do, their starting catcher will catch them. Some guys do no, just like a bullpen catcher, the backup catcher, somebody who's not playing, whatever. And then we have your starting catcher go and they start catching the game. Have they blocked the ball? Did the coach get them ready to block? Are they supposed to block immediately after not practicing blocking before the game? We hit before, we pitch before, we take ground balls. Why don't we prep our catchers? They're always left out. So I implore you guys to get in front of the dugout 5 minutes before start time, especially obviously if you're home team, and just throw balls in the dirt. Have your catcher going through those reps 8, 10, 12, 15 times. Have them block those balls. You can't expect them to block clean right away. They have to get into the kind of swing of things, and you can't get mad at them for not blocking it when they haven't blocked yet, right? So in between innings, have the catchers throw. Just like it's a real game, have them throw to second base as hard as they can. Do their thing. I'm sure Coach Andy and some of you guys do it too. One of the first things I do when we play a team is you look at their catcher, right? Okay, he's throwing down, and if a kid's lazy, throws from his knees or gets up and just kind of soft throws down there and stuff, okay, cool. I know how this game is going to go probably, right? A little bit of a lazy catcher, so we can kind of take advantage a little bit. There's a kid that'll be unnamed that played with us, and probably the best arm I've seen. Pretty good freaking arm, and you guys know who this kid is. I just won't name him. He played with us, and he caught, and he would catch the ball behind the dish. He would take 3 steps and throw it to second base, and the ball wouldn't get this high off the ground. Absolute cannon. We stole on him all day long, and he was frustrated and he got upset about it. I'm like, the idea is to get rid of the baseball. The idea is not to take 3 steps and throw as hard as you can, right? Because you're burning time. So what's the lesson we learn is catching wise, you got to get rid of the baseball ASAP. I don't care if you have a moderate arm. I'd rather have that kid than the kid with an absolute cannon that takes 3 steps and is in front of the plate after he lets go. Coaches teach momentum. You got to get momentum. You got to get momentum. No, you got to get rid of the ball. Get that right foot down. Get rid of the baseball. So I always go off on tangents like that. So catching portion, and then we typically had 2 sessions, and then we'd switch. Coach Lizzie would go to hitting, and it would just it became initially. I'm going to be honest with you, it was a little bit of a cluster, but once after week 3, 4, that first year, it just started to be more of a machine and kids started to understand expectations on how to do it. Now, as far as elite school goes, the school itself is not the reason why we were pretty successful. I mean, obviously it helped and it took a lot of work, but it's the coaches and the instructors, guys. Really is really hard to find a good coach. And a guy that'll take a team that at 8 and then go all the way to 14, what happens in that time frame? If he's still coaching the team at 14, which is fairly rare, is that fair? Pretty rare. Go to 8-14, well, something happens, right? And for sure, you're not going to have the same 11, 12 kids. For sure, 100%. If you do, that would be the first time that probably ever happened in select baseball history. Honestly, it just doesn't happen for various reasons, whether the coach's fault, parents' fault, kid, whatever it may be. And don't be ashamed of, and I always talk about cutting kids, right? Cutting kids. I hear that and I kind of cringe. I always use the word displace. Okay. When we ask a kid to move on, I tell them, I will find you a place to play that'll be a perfect fit for you. All you got to do is let me know. And parents are usually kind of ticked off. Most are. Some of them tell me to go fly a kite. And some of them are really cool about it. They're like, you know what? Yeah, we see it and we understand. And you want that kid to be, you want your kid to be 1 through 5, 1 through 6 on the team, right? You don't want your kid to be constantly the 10, 11, 12 kid. I've always said that for confidence reasons, for a lot of reasons, but you just don't want that kid, right? And I'm a big believer in, I'm not okay, this kid's hit 11 the whole year. I'm going to move him up to 1, because I feel bad for the kid. Okay, well, that's good, but there's 2 sides of that coin. What about the 1 kid who does everything he's supposed to do in practice, hits really well, good kid, he's displaced because I want to be nice to the kid that's hitting 11, right? I don't do that. I will not do that because it's about merit for us and what we do. You've got to earn that. You don't want to hit 11, then you better hit better. It's pretty simple, right? Now, do you guys roll your lineups ever? You done that? Hit 1 through 11, then the next game, if it ends on 9, then the leadoff's 10. So I've done that a few times. I mean, midweek game guys mean absolutely nothing, obviously. I've done that before, but for the most part, I want to tell our guys that are hitting up in the lineup that you deserve it, you've earned it. So this is what you're going to do, man. Where do you put your best hitter in the lineup? Best hitter, whether it's power, average, where do you put him? Okay, fair.
This is the answer to that question, but what about being like your 9 and getting another leadoff? Or areas 11 series?
Being another leadoff?
Yeah, so
What do you mean?
when I played at Hutch, our coach always had our 1 and 9 flip flop, whether that be first game of the series, third game of the series, whatever. Just because you never wanted your end of the lineup to be the weakest.
Yeah. That's fair. And at the higher levels, if you're talking college ball or high school, I think it can be a little bit different. So I don't have any, and again, every team's built differently. So that's not a bad idea at all, in my opinion. Good. That's a good answer. We'll talk about that. That's a really good answer. Anybody else? Where would you put your best hitter? There's the man. There's Aaron. That's what I do. Why?
What's stats?
Get him. So I have my leadoff hitter is Carter, kid from Kansas. Andy knows him pretty well. If I had to guess, I'm not into ranking kids, but Carter's probably a top 50 kid in the country. There's really not a thing that kid can't do. I've seen him do things that are just, I've never seen any baseball kid at this age do in 35 years of baseball. He's my leadoff. I want that kid to get 20 to 30 more ABs a year, 100%. Okay, so let's talk about the 3-hole, right? I was that guy, 3-hole. I hit 3. I wanted my best hitters to hit 3. But here's the slight issue with that. Okay. A lot of the times 1 and 2 get out. So your 3-hole's coming up with nobody on, right? Depends on the team, of course. I mean, we're fortunate to have our 1-2s get on quite a bit. And our 3-hole's pretty good too. So it depends on the team, but one hole, I think, in my opinion, is where it's at. You got to get your guy. But then, like you just said, at the end of your lineup, what if you have some kids that aren't very fast and aren't hitting very well? You kind of run into the same problem a little bit. But overall, the whole course of the season, they're going to get more at bats, and that's the ultimate goal, is to get more at bats. My leadoff this year hit 610, had 25 home runs, and had 70 RBIs from the leadoff position at 12U. Okay. The end of my lineup guys weren't, they were end of the lineup guys. They hit 250, 300, couple home runs, not horrible, but they weren't front of the lineup guys. So who knows what would happen if I put that kid in 3-hole? Okay. But he's just fine where he's at. He's absolutely just fine, because you want to always obviously roll your lineup. So it's good. It's a good conversation to have. And again, it's team dependent, right? I mean, I'm not going to judge, and there's no right or wrong answer, but that's absolutely what I would want. Andy, your best hitter, where's he at? Okay. Okay. McGreer, yeah. Oh yeah, I know Grayson. He's hurt us a few times. Yeah, no doubt. Tall, lanky, blonde kid, easy to pick out. I know him. Yeah, absolutely. And speed obviously is different. So who said 5-hole? You said 5-hole. That was good. Why 5-hole? Yeah, that's probably my next best argument is probably 5-hole. And again, of course, if you have 1 through 4 that aren't the greatest 1 through 4, that might be a little bit of an issue, but that's a huge run producer position, 100%. If you get a good RBI guy producer, that's a good spot to put him in. But again, it's all kind of objective stuff because I don't know everybody's team. But anyway, it's good. It's a good discussion. Any questions about the template and how that worked? How Elite School would work, and is it something that you guys could do? Because I don't know facility wise. I just remember there's an answer to everything. You could probably tell me how many teams you have, how many coaches, instructors, and I can knock out something in 5 minutes. Be like, hey, do this, in this facility. Would it suck? Wouldn't be ideal, but could do it.
I think it was called Next Level at the time.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But
Championship Center was next level. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
But I'm gonna ask you after this, because we've talked about.
Who was your coach?
Jason Brazel and Greg Powell.
So you played on blue?
It
It was blue prior, and then he went to Millard Elite.
Is that,
Yeah. What's your name?
Tilo?
Yeah, Philo, I know. Yeah, absolutely. I remember you.
I think it's time to go. And then he started helping out for sure.
He did Tyler, and then we had Alex Hale, who owns Chips in Omaha now. He's an influencer.
Yeah.
He's more of a social media guy than a baseball guy. I always give him crap about that. I was supposed to have him up for a coaching clinic, but me and Alex started. We started, and then he left after a year or two. After actually the next year, but good catching. There's some good catching instructors in Omaha.
Yeah.
You bet.
That was kind of, and you talk about MBA and what they wanted to do with the development kids. I'll give you that question for you in here. What would be your best advice?
How many teams? How many kids? What are we talking? 20 teams? What about time frame? What are we talking? Like,
I mean, that was the biggest challenge. Obviously, the quadrants, they're huge. I would say I was very bad.
yeah, so I just don't know how you guys do your time blocks, or how much time would you have? Okay. Are the other facilities like this? Okay.
We do our hitting. Yeah, I don't know.
It's the higher ceilings, it's.
You got all buildings.
The ABA one's got real, it's probably, it's bigger than this and taller ceilings.
Yeah. Everybody's available.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The turf is,
yeah, turf is near.
it's near the backbone.
Yeah, you can get 8 cages. They don't.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. Or 4, and you can hit it that way as well. I assume you could, yeah, even though they don't have the home plate and stuff, you probably still could. Challenge, fellas. It's a pretty big challenge. You'd have to have just more blocks, bigger blocks of time, which I just don't know. With 20 teams, man, yeah, that'd be a challenge. Now, is there things that you can do like hitting obviously would be a little bit more of a challenge. Catching would be just fine. Catching wouldn't be an issue. Infield stuff, what we do with Elite is all the Trotsky dynamic infield stuff. We put on a ton of clinics doing that. It's a different type. I don't know if any of you guys teach dynamic infield stuff, but we've been doing that with our kids since they're 8 years old. It's a little bit different from the old school stuff, and we can talk about that. I can even do another clinic on dynamic infield. We do Nebraska Gold. You guys are familiar with Nebraska Gold softball? They're really good. It's our softball program, our top softball program, really good. Jordy Ball, those girls came from it. Me and Peyton Lewis just did a dynamic infield clinic with them, and softball is the place to do dynamic clinic or infield because it's so fast, so small. And I was telling their coaches, Larry Swift, the director, I was like, well, why aren't you guys doing this kind of infield training? This is built for you guys. It's the fields are so small, the girls are so big, and they just haven't done it. So we started doing that infield stuff, and it turned infield wise, it turned our whole program around. Like when we train our infielders, Mike specifically, and I don't want to lead anymore. I can just kind of consult a little bit, but with my team, when we do infield stuff, I don't do, okay, third base here, you work, JT, my coach, you coach there, you do a third base. We all go to shortstop and we do all shortstop drills. With my big first baseman, with my big third baseman, it doesn't matter. We do shortstop drills. If they can do that, then they can play first or third. They can play outfield. They can play anywhere if they can play shortstop, right? So that's kind of how we do our infield training, and what we do with that. And it's different, and it's quick, and it's getting rid of the ball super quick. That's the whole basis behind it. Is get rid of the ball, funnel, V slot, get rid of the baseball. There's no gather and gain. There's no taking 3 shuffles. There's none of that stuff. So it's pretty fun and it's fast paced stuff. So
Interesting about you go, it's like,
no, you don't. And we brought in Nate before he got super popular about 8-9 years ago. We brought him in to do a camp at our field house, and he's a pure California dude. I was like, Nate, what do you need, man? You got 8 hours here today, 6 hours tomorrow. What do you need? He's like, I don't know. Can you give me a gallon of milk? I'm like, okay, cool. I'll get you some milk. And he did his thing. He just goes on. He doesn't have a sheet. He doesn't have anything, and it's awesome. It's what he does is incredible. It's all fast-paced, dynamic stuff. And he'll take a break, go drink out of his gallon of milk that's out all day. Yeah, he's a weird dude. He's a surfer type dude. Married a girl. Loved Dominican Republic so much is where he got all his training from, basically. And he said, hey, all these dudes are taking the American jobs in Major League Baseball. There's a reason for it. So he brought all that training up, married a girl from down there and starting academies and all this stuff. So he's a pretty progressive dude, but Nate's a good guy. But you're right. There's no fungos. There's none of that stuff. When you have a fungo in your hand, unless there's 2, what's going to happen is you're going to really slow the amount of reps, lessen the amount of reps the kids get. If you think about it, it turns into, okay, you don't want kids in lines. And if they are, you want them in the line for 10, 15 seconds max, right? That's kind of the whole goal. And I see it too much. And again, the coaches kind of don't know what they don't know. You just a line of 6 kids and boom, boom. And then they get 10 ground balls in 20 minutes or something ridiculous. So just don't be that guy. Do other things, have kids throw to each other. We have Trotsky rebounders all over the place in our facilities. They use those all the time. Those are great. There's not many gimmicky things or tools that I like, but the Trotsky rebounder, and I'm not selling for Nate at all. You can buy other brands, but those things are well worth the money. There's 1,000 things you can do with those things. And then the kids can do it themselves too. You don't need a coach there to do it for them. So
I think we thought about this. It probably means you're getting out. There's stuff here, which we sort of talked about that. There isn't about yeah, I mean, there's several programs. There's the big one that the Justin Seeley's with, and that's just where they're Monday nights, and you don't keep practice, you go, handlers go here, catchers go here, you know, and they have guys doing besides the coaches just to help. This ought to be actually every.
Yeah, no, it is. It's totally the good way to do it. And I've restructured everything. I'm going to restructure again next year. Just, you know, the January to March, guys, is great and have your kids feeling good, fielding off turf and doing all this stuff. But that's why I hit. We throw our bullpens, do arm care stuff more than do the infield and outfield drills and base and all that stuff. We'll get 3 or 4 practices in March before we get going to do that infield and fly ball stuff outside, which is a totally different ball game, as you know, totally different. So I don't just do a lot of that stuff in here. We work catching, hitting, our bullpens, some run game control, and that's what we do, and getting live at bats in. This year we're going to Arizona. I believe you went last year, right?
Yeah, we would.
Yeah, we're going this year, so it kind of just ups everything about 2 weeks for us. So we're going to go practice at Scott for 3-4 times before we go, and they will. We've done ground balls twice, fungos in the quads, I think, and I was down some coaches, and I kind of had to do some different things, but we just don't do it. We keep it more macro, and when we go outside, it's on the dirt. It's just a little bit different ball game. So, but yeah. Individual stuff like that. I like that academy style training where infield goes here, catchers go here, because I'm used to it, because it's what we did with Elite, and because it worked. It's worked for us. The team stuff indoors drives me nuts unless 8 or 9, you can do some team things and put in your signs and have the catcher throw down and all that stuff. That's great. And how practices are ultimately supposed to be built. You know, you start with your warm-ups, you do your breaks, leads and breaks. In my opinion, to warm up even more, it's kind of a dual thing, warm up and you're working on base running. Then you do your individual skill acquisition stuff, and then you can do your team stuff. But the breaking up of sections, whether it's hitting, catching, infield, is the route to go, in my opinion. Your team doesn't have to be together all the time. What's hard about that is, you don't want to pigeonhole a kid. Hey, 9-year-old, you're going to be an infielder, and that's it. So you may have to have that kid jump from different things or make some tough decisions later on. But the 12 to 14 stuff, you kind of having a good idea where a kid's going to play, obviously. So the academy style learning is kind of where it's at, but it's dependent on what you have, right? Your facilities and clinics, or the amount of space that you have. Now I can run a catcher's clinic in here I can have 30 catchers in here, and we'd do great in here. Infield, absolutely, same thing. It'd be tough to get that many teams and then having throwing bullpens. That's kind of where it's tricky, probably for you guys, is like bullpens and all that kind of stuff, and with the amount of teams you have and the smaller facilities. So, any questions on that? The template itself, I have literally 60 of those things, and they're different. And they change, but more than anything, there's not a ton of drills there involved. When we went to hitting, we would do a couple of drills. And here's the thing, guys, don't get drill happy. Don't be the guy that goes in a cage and says, okay, Happy Gilmore drill, pretty popular drill, right? This number here off a tee, bam, we hit. Okay, I have coaches doing that, and they do that with the whole team. What's the problem with that? What's that?
Slowing down. Extend right.
Can't see it.
Part of it. Boom, that's the number one. All right answers, but that's the most right answer. Okay, what if I had have kids that jump at the baseball, which 90% of kids that are young do? They think they're faster by jumping at the baseball. Okay, what is Happy Gilmore going to do? It's going to make it worse. So do a step back drill station, do a Happy Gilmore station. You have kids that get stuck on their backside that don't need to do the step back drill, and those kids need to do the Happy Gilmore drill. Okay, so don't be the guy that one size fits all drill. Don't do that. You're making it 10 times worse for the guys. Okay, and every time you get in a cage, live. It's hard. It's not easy. You may need some parents to throw, you may do, but live is where it's at all the time, whether it's front toss or whether it's here. Who coaches eights or nines here? Okay. When you throw, BP to them and stuff, how did that look? In a cage. Okay. How do you throw to them?
I'll either back up and go like 30, 40 feet.
Okay.
I'll do some toss.
Are you standing up?
Yes.
Okay. So don't do that. The angle that you're throwing at, they will never see that angle. They're trying to intercept the ball that's going down here because you're tall and they're small. They'll never see that.
It's usually under front.
So if you can stand up and do behind an L screen and do front toss, or just sit on a bucket behind the L screen. That's the plane that they need to see.
Okay.
Yeah, it took me 3 years to figure that one out. I get mad at them for not hitting. And I'm like, okay, they're trying to. It's kind of like the hitting philosophy. The whole hitting philosophy is I want to get on plane with a baseball as fast as I can, right? It's really hard to intersect the ball like this, the old chop the tree down, like our old coaches used to teach us, which is totally wrong, right? Intercept here, I've got to get on plane, barrel below my hands as fast as I can. It's hard for them to get on plane with the ball coming like this, and they have to meet it perfectly, right? So just, and I didn't mean to like call you out because I did the same thing until I was like, what am I doing? Right? I'm like this much taller than these guys, and the ball's coming straight downhill at like a 40-degree angle. It's ridiculous. So yeah, just get on a bucket, throw overhand or under hop. It's fine too, under toss. So, what didn't I cover, Andy? Obviously, this is something that I probably could have talked 6 hours about some of the stuff that we did and don't do, but I can send Andy pretty much anything. If you need something, I'll send it to you. In regards to the schooling, the coaching part of it. But this culture thing here, so I'm not going to take full credit for the culture part of it. Me and Jeff Lisey kind of put it together a little bit because we're really, both of us were into the culture part of it, and that has to start there. And everybody has to be on the same page. And there was some bumps in the road. I had to get rid of some guys, because it was a constant fight, with them. And I just thought, hey, you know what? Philosophies are a little different. It's probably best that we part ways. No hard feelings. It's just the way it is. One guy well known in Omaha, and it just was his way. And we couldn't do that. We couldn't have guys that were like that. Me, my way's the best way. We just couldn't do it. Not going to happen. So, no hard feelings. This is what we're doing and this is how we do it. Sorry. So, any questions, guys, about anything? If you guys need, Andy, if you need, I'd be more than happy to come down here. If you want to do a catching clinic, if you want to do, anything like that, feel free. This is what I do. This is what I enjoy doing it. The player development stuff is good, but I kind of got burnt out on the individual stuff a little bit. I kind of like more groups and the coaching aspect of it now more. I think you can reach more people and it's a lot more interesting to me. So, and I think it's needed, grow the game, man, grow it. So
We really appreciate it.
absolutely. There is, and we're fortunate we've been around for so long, and we've had our bumps and bruises, and we've changed with the Kingswood Tilo, what you were talking about, coming together and guys coming in and out. We've had every name, Southworth, Goudreau, Alex, all these guys coming in and out, and they want to do their own thing, and it's just you're gonna run into stumbling blocks, but you have good people, and you guys have some guys that think outside the box. You'll get past them. There's always an answer. To every problem you'll have, there'll be an answer if you just kind of think about it a little bit, right? Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Need anything, let me know. Andy has my contact. More than happy to reach out. I take calls, I take email, anything if you guys want to grow the game or want to get some knowledge. And I learn every bit as much in clinics that I give our coaches. And usually we have 40, 50 coaches. Millard's huge, obviously. And I learn a ton from them. When I go watch their practices, and I tell them I'm not critiquing, I'm taking notes, and I want to see your plan. And I'm sitting there, I've used stuff that they've done. And we're talking our battle teams, AA, single A, triple A. I've taken stuff from them. So that's just kind of how it works, I don't know everything, but I've got some experience to fall back on and the good and bad and the do's and the don'ts. But I do consider myself an expert definitely at the 8, 9 age group because I did it for so long. And that's where it starts, man. If you can get them going good there, sky's the limit. Absolutely. So thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. You bet.